Hi there, Joel from Jonesy's Off-Road and jonesysautoclub.com. And I know a lot of you viewers who were excited about the 7.3 liter Power Stroke conversion into the 1979 one-ton have thought we have fallen off of the wagon on that project. Well, there has been an infusion of interest in this project, and so now we are going to give you an update about what we have accomplished. We started out with a rendering. And the owner authorized the rendering, and so that's what we decided to build. So the goal of the project: take a 1979 single rear wheel, 1-ton Ford F350 with a high pinion Dana 60 front axle and install a Ford, or International, depending on who you talk to, 7.3 liter Power Stroke diesel out of a 2000 3/4 ton Excursion. So what does it take to actually install that engine into a early Ford chassis? Well, you need to start out with the wide frame. Ford had two versions of the frame. They had a narrow frame, and then they had a wide frame. You're going to have to start out with a wide frame because the Power Stroke is a very big engine. So, wide frame, first criteria. Second criteria, you need to outboard the steering box. Now, Ford power steering absolutely was terrible on these old trucks, so I didn't think that was that big of a deal because we were able to install and mount a Chevy style steering box that was outboard. Then we went and did a simple high steer crossover style steering conversion with a high steer arm on one side and then utilizing the factory Ford tie rod to connect both sides. Okay. The engine is huge front to back. Okay, this thing is massive. That's why all the Ford Super Duties and the Excursions and stuff have such an enormous hood. And in order to swap out a lot of this stuff, a lot of the service manuals say you actually have to lift the body off of the chassis to do it. So we went to a van application to gain some front clearance between the radiator and the fan, and we installed a van, an E series, that had a Power Stroke in it, and installed that fan clutch. Okay, continuing on around the vehicle, some of the other modifications that we were able to do. Because we have the cab off of the chassis, I thought it would be a great time to give you guys a guided tour of the full powertrain and chassis. Okay, you're never going to have access to a chassis like we have right now for our conversion. So, starting with the engine. Our Excursion, our donor vehicle, was a two-wheel drive, okay? So we have an overdrive, two-wheel drive version. A lot of you guys are thinking, well, this is a F350 four-wheel drive, so how do you then get a transfer case? Well, if you continue on, you can see that the two-wheel drive just has a regular cross member, and then you get to the back here, and we stole a transfer case and the mounting setup out of the early Fords. A lot of you Ford gurus are going to immediately identify this as the divorced style transfer case. Okay, so you have a driveline, driveline, driveline. Three drivelines, driveline between the two-wheel drive transmission and the MP205 transfer case that's divorced. Fabricated some pretty big beefy mounts on here and hung the transfer case very similar to how a factory Ford would have done it. Okay, continuing on to the back of the vehicle. A lot of these Fords had dual tanks. We have eliminated the dual tank. We call up Aero gas tanks and they set us a 45-gallon rear mount wide frame fuel tank. Simple, doesn't matter if this is for gas or for diesel. We're going to use it for diesel, not a problem. You just need to make sure that your filler neck will accept the large spout diesel pump. Okay, moving back up from the rear of the vehicle, the stock Ford Excursion fuel pump was retained. We fabricated a little mounting bracket here, bolted it to the side of the frame, and then utilized the stock Ford Excursion fuel lines going up. Then we fabricated new lines that go to the back. Very simple. I mean, you have a fuel supply line and you have a return line. That's all there is to that. Now, hooking up the transfer case to the transmission actually turned out to be really, really simple. The Ford Excursion transmission had some tapped holes right here and right here that we were then actually able to utilize the factory 1979 transfer case arm, bolted it in there, have our pivot. Then we built this transfer case shift extension with a couple of Heim joints and some thick wall tube to provide our transfer case shifting. Okay? Simple. All very reminiscent of earlier, like 1977 Ford divorce style transfer case. Okay. The Excursion also utilized hydro boost. Now, this is really, really common when you have a turbocharger. You don't have vacuum brakes, and the reason why is that they produce boost. They don't have engine vacuum, they have boost. So we had to fabricate a couple of spacers and a couple mounting brackets. You can see this is kind of just for mock-up purposes only. This stuff will all get cleaned up. It'll get boxed in so that it actually looks like a real product. But we utilize the Excursion Hydro Boost. Now, if you're considering doing a conversion like this, it's a really, really great idea to start with a whole entire donor vehicle. ...2000 Excursion, bought it at a salvaged auto auction, and then we utilized a huge amount of parts from that. Everything from intercooler, transmission, obviously fuel pump, hydro boost, brake system, some of the lines, all of that stuff becomes invaluable to you if you're going to consider doing one of these conversions on your own.